What up, everybody? I'm Val. Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. I'm your host, joined by my co-host, John Gray of Hangar Z fame. Today, we're thrilled to bring you an exciting two-part episode featuring the incredible team from Billings Flying Service. In this episode, we'll be sitting down with Peter and Jed, two aviation experts who helped shape Billings Flying Service into the powerhouse it is today. We'll dive deep into their personal journeys in aviation, exploring how family influences and passion for flight have guided their careers. Get ready for an enlightening discussion on the challenges of aircraft operations, particularly in high-stakes scenarios like firefighting and disaster relief. Our guests will share insights on risk management, crisis preparedness, and the critical importance of safety in aviation. We'll also explore the fascinating world of the CH-47 helicopter, discussing its capabilities in firefighting operations and the unique challenges of maintaining these powerful machines. From military transitions to civilian operations, we'll uncover the expertise required to keep these aircraft in top condition. But that's not all. We'll dive deep into the innovative solutions developed by the Billings Flying Service team to overcome maintenance challenges, the impact of recent global events in the aviation industry, and the importance of fostering new talent in the field, which is always important. So fasten your seatbelts and prepare for takeoff as we embark on this thrilling journey through the world of aviation maintenance and operations with Billings Flying Service. It's time to elevate your understanding of the vertical lift industry on the Vertical MRO Podcast. I'm Val. This is Vertical MRO. Let's get this started. Special thanks to our sponsors for this podcast: Precision Aviation Group, Rotorcraft Repair and Manufacturing, Robinson Helicopter Company.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.
All right, everyone, you're ready for contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO Podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Now, line altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
What up, everybody? It's Val back here at Vertical MRO with my co-host and extraordinaire co-host, Mr. John Gray. What's cracking, brother?
Hey, Val. How you doing, Hambone?
Living the cold dream, man. Living the cold dream.
Yeah, I feel bad because of all of us in this room. I've got the warmest temperature, and it's by quite a bit. So I feel bad for all you guys. It's currently raining. We've got one of those atmospheric rivers coming through Southern California.
Oh, man.
But it's not snow, and it's not negative 5,000 degrees like you guys are experiencing. So
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. No, we'll make that a short conversation here, man. Because it's there's not. You know what? It's an unfortunate thing is I got two dogs there, so when I let them outside, they both come in limping. Like, it's cold, and the dog's paws are cold, right? So it's yeah. Welcome to a good old winter peg mosquito toba. So that's where I live. Good to see you, man. Everything's been kind of flowing. Yeah, thanks for kind of holding up the gates here when I was away. Appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, got to hold down an interview while you're gone, and I won't lie, we're jealous. You're down in Australia and getting a little bit of what's summer down there, right?
Yeah, but there was no chance to kind of sit by a poolside and kind of grab some sun, man, because that short stint that we did to Papua New Guinea, that was an eye opener. And I wish they invested more in Old Spice. I'm not going to lie to you. So, yeah. So let's get to the preface of the show. John, thanks a lot for arranging this there. We have two very welcome guests here with a company that's been around for a long time. So on that note, let me welcome Peter Yegan. Did I get that last name right?
Yeah, that's correct.
There it is, Peter. And we got Jed Wagner. That's an easier name. So gents, welcome to the Vertical MRO show.
Hey, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It'll be our honor here. Kind of, John was able to kind of arrange this, so thanks you to their Grey Goose. I appreciate you doing this, brother.
Yeah, well, in Southern California, we're coming off the heels of the LA firestorm.
Yes,
and the fire season in Southern California really never goes away. So when the fires rolled through, we started realizing like we need to have some conversations. And in fact, we had a conversation on my podcast with a pilot, Mike Sagely, who flies for LA County Sheriffs. And we talked about the maintenance side, what's required to support those operations that were taking place 24/7 in those conditions. And I'm like, we need to have some conversations that surrounding not just this fire, but the support side of this in general. And got connected with the Billings folks and really excited, looking at your guys' backgrounds, I'll just say again, I have no business being in this room with you guys, but I'm in awe of the support that you guys offer and the mission set that you guys fulfill with Billings, and really excited to hear about your guys' experience and what you guys do.
Oh, you bring the pilot's perspective. That's what we're going to give it to you there, buddy.
I can't fix it, but I can break it.
That's right. That's right. Listen, like I said, both of you guys thanks a lot for being, first and foremost, thank you for kind of fighting the fires that you guys did out west. I know Billings has been around for a long time to support those types of things. You guys have been kind of doing this for a long time. So thanks again to you and your entire company, guys. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. Speaking on behalf of Billings Flying Service, it's what we do, and we appreciate the thanks, and we look forward to, continuing our efforts.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Before we get into it here, I'm going to get you guys to kind of just talk a little bit about yourselves, brag a little bit where you've been, where you're at, and what you're kind of doing here at Billings. Jed, I'll let you kind of start off the questions, or let's start off the whole show here. How tall are you, first and foremost?
Yeah, I always tell everyone I'm 6'6" without shoes on. So it's colder here, so we have boots. I'm a little bit taller, but
nice.
Yeah, definitely
Okay.
not a shorty. Yeah.
Okay. So, go ahead, Jed. Just like I said, just give a little quick intro of who you are, what you've been doing, and how you're doing it at Billings.
Yeah, so it's been about, a decade in aviation for me. I started at a large fixed-wing cargo operation a number of years back. Did about 7 years there. Really learned a lot about, the aviation engineering area, which really piqued my interest. When I was doing that role, I met my wife, and we were visiting Montana twice a year. And just how it happened is we were, growing our family, and that pandemic really kind of peaked at a point. And it's like, we should just come into Montana full time. And so really I brought my aviation engineering skills, and looking around, Montana, Billings was a good fit for us for a variety of reasons. And Billings Flying Service is, the spot you want to be for aviation in Billings. And it was kind of just right place, right time.
Right.
Bringing my skill set, coming into Billings, really bringing everything I knew about repairs, alterations and certification, things like that. I started picking up things to help, and now my backpack's pretty big, but I like that. It's a lot of variety of different things that I do here at Billings, whether it's, doing those repairs on components, airframes, STCs for modifications, or working at a higher level with the FAA for type certificates. It's kind of a little bit of everything every day, and it keeps it super interesting.
You have an interesting aircraft to take care of. Like the CH-47 is not your everyday common aircraft, but it is one that is noticeable when you hear the wop-wop flying over top. That's for sure.
Yeah, the kids always know when we're doing test flights or doing
Yes.
check flights, because they can hear us flying around. So definitely noticeable in the area.
Yes, nicely done. Nicely done. And your current role, you're Director of Engineering at Billings, sir?
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
my tagline is, if it's not in the book and you want to do it, you come see me. That's kind of pretty much everything in there. It's like, hey, I got an idea. It's like, I like ideas. It may not be feasible right now, but let's at least hear it out and see what we can do. But that's kind of my arena.
Seed is planted.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, again, welcome to the show, Jed. Peter, on you, man. How you been? First and foremost, we're gonna ask you about your height. Might as well. It's an open discussion. Seems like there's a prerequisite to work at Billings. You got to be north of 6 foot.
That's right. I'm maybe just north 6'1", I guess. No 6'6". I wear shoes typically, so
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm Peter Yagan. I'm the Director of Aircraft Support here at Billings Flying Service. I am native to this area. I grew up here. I was born here in Billings. I grew up on a ranch just west of, and I've spent most of my time in the state, a little bit abroad, but I didn't grow up in an aviation family. I grew up in a cattle ranching family. We did insurance, real estate as well. And my introduction to the Billings Flying Service and aviation was actually through a good friend of mine in high school, AJ Blaine, and he introduced me to this wonderful world of aviation. So
Thanks for being polite.
yeah, no, I love it. I mean, it's a fascinating thing, and coming from someone, somewhere without any aviation background, you see the airplanes, you see the helicopters, you realize the power and the potency, but until you actually get in the helicopter for that first time, man, that is something special. So, that's kind of where my introduction to aviation came from. Not kind of, definitely. And before that, I worked for them in the summers after high school and college. Went and got a business degree initially, and realized that wasn't quite for me. I was working for the Blaines, driving a support truck, messing around, S61s, 212s. Stuff like that. They had Hueys back then too.
Yeah.
And then kind of, did I broke away from the company for a bit. I worked at a ski hill doing snowmaking and snowcat driving. And then at that time, I realized, hey, this is kind of more my neck of the woods machines, and got back in touch with the Blaines and got an engineering degree. When I graduated, talked to Al Blaine. He said, hey, why don't you come check us out? We're kind of standing up this 47 program. At that time, it was really fledgling. I mean, they had just purchased them. I was telling John yesterday, I mean, the program started at a trailer house down by the Yellowstone River, here by the Billings dump. It's just a bunch of guys in the trailer, some gals too, and a couple hangars down there. Chinooks wouldn't even fit in them. I mean, it was a pad and some green machines. And that was the start. I wasn't here for the trailer park days. Well, I was early on. I was back in 2011. But by the time I finally came on to the engineering program, we had moved up to where we're at now on the west side of the Billings Airport. And I started here in the engineering department, and just here recently have been put into this role as the support director.
Okay.
It's interesting talking about growing up on a ranch. I've had this conversation in the past with folks that are either maintaining or operating aircraft. They talk about, when you grow up on a ranch, how much you're around machinery and how you get used to using, all your limbs to operate whatever that machinery is that you're operating. So you kind of just grow up in this world, and then transitioning to aircraft is not a big deal because you've been around it your whole life, whether you're maintaining it or operating it. Did you have a similar experience through your youth?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad, he's a gearhead through and through. He's older now, so he does less of it. But when I was young, it was me kind of on his coattails, fixing cars, fixing tractors, whatever it may be.
Peter, just no. Let's make the role here actually like real here. You stood there and you're handing the tools to Dad while he was yelling at you, wasn't he?
There are pictures of me just like kind of, at the workbench, peering up at him as he's, tearing apart a carburetor or whatever it may be.
I wanted a 9/16, not a 7/16.
He was gentle though. He was, honestly, for a mentor, working on machines, whatever, it can be kind of, when you're working with somebody that's maybe a little green, especially if that person is 4 or 5. Yeah, I'm sure it was frustrating for him, but he was super nice. So
4 or 5. Wow, he broke you in early.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I just would follow him around everywhere he was going, I was going, and I wanted to know what was up. So
good man. Good man.
But as we got, as I got older and working on the ranch, I would definitely attribute the knowledge that I have for hydraulic systems, which is kind of where I started here with Billings, is directly related to life on the ranch. John Deere 4320s, 4440s, old 9Ns, not a lot of hydraulics on them, but just kind of the intricacies of a machine, how it works, how you take it apart, how you go back together. I would say all of that comes from my experience on the ranch. So
gotcha.
For sure.
A lot of that too on a ranch. It's not like, in your situation might be different, but a lot of the ranches aren't anywhere near part supply. So a lot of times you're having to come up with a solution that may not be, by the book per se, which comes in handy when you find yourself in the bush or
hey man, we don't talk about that on this show. Let's go.
or off site.
Yeah. To that point, yeah, for sure. It makes you think out of the box, right? So there's repairs that I'll do on a tractor that we wouldn't consider on wing, right? But it does give you a perspective like, hey, there is another way to do this. And that's why we have Jed. We're not going to go and just execute something out in the field that's unsafe or otherwise unacceptable. But it does raise a question like, hey, maybe there's something here. Maybe we can, go about this in a different way and get approval for some of these repairs or whatever it may be.
A little bit of shoulda, coulda, woulda.
There's some of that, but
yeah.
It's just the necessity of the thing and of the platform we run. So
yeah, and I want to echo that. The experience may not be a direct parlay, but that mindset about having mechanical comfortability and trying to find a solution, find a way to yes to meet the need. That's a huge plus. So whether it's direct experience, but just having that willingness to, we use the phrase pick up a shovel. That's a huge deal for us.
Yeah. What's the aircraft count now there at Billings? On the 47s?
A lot.
A lot. Yeah. So just a lot. Yeah. Okay. That's all we need to know.
Certified flying that we own is 6, and then we have 6 more that we're in the process of certificating.
So the haircut is justified on Peter's. noodle there on that one.
Yeah. We
Right,
got a few things
great
going on.
coming in here too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Hey, Jed, you're good. Just get used to it, man. It's going to start falling out or going gray.
Yeah,
So-
no, we say in the engineering group, you just got to kind of have that mentality where you just got to let it go up to your eyeballs and accept it. All the new guys, you can tell it's like, oh, it's like he hasn't hit it yet.
No, this
Like, what do you mean? It's like, no, like we haven't given them like all the projects. It's like, you just got to kind of accept. Yeah. It's like, there's just that level where you're like, you know what, there's always going to be something to do, which is a good feeling. But then being able to handle that project stress is a key part of the engineering group, because it's a mindset for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the one thing, if there's a common thread amongst every one of our podcasts here, and John, you can echo this for me if you like too, because you oversee all of the HeliCAST team. There's a big passion for flying any type of our helicopters. Big passion is always involved, and there's a network amongst friends you kind of bring into yourselves. Go like what you were talking about earlier here, Peter. The hook gets set at a very young age, and you cannot shake it because it's the cool machinery that you get to see keep flying. But then you bring your friends and your networks into it, and they're like, okay, I understand what you're talking about. So when you have that passion to keep those aircraft flying, it's good to see the muscle behind the passion on it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Speaking of that passion, I mean, you're right. It lasts. Even here, we roll something out. Maybe it's got a new paint job, or it's a new aircraft that we just demilled and flying for the first time. Everybody pours out of the office or the hangar to see it fly. And it's like, we've seen them go hundreds of times or whatever, but man, every time something new happens, people are excited, and it's a passionate group for sure.
It always cracks me up at our local fly-ins, the sheriff's departments, different police agencies host fly-ins. There's a couple hundred police officers there, all part of air crews, and an aircraft comes in, and there's 50 to 60 police officers out there that fly these things every day, taking video and pictures of that helicopter coming in. So it just, lends to what you're talking about. Everyone's got such a passion and love for what we do that I think, look at what we're doing here. We love what we do so much that we spend our off time talking about it and listening to information surrounding
That's
our
right.
passion for it. So
Heli nerds for life, buddy.
Yeah. I think
Love
we
it.
were doing a ground run, and it had just snowed. I mean, it wasn't that big snowstorm we had. We were doing a ground run on it. And I sent a video back to my friends, like, it's another day in aviation. It's like 10 degrees and you can barely see it because it's snow everywhere. It's like, if you got to spin the rotors, go out there and get the job done. So definitely associate with that.
What not a lot of people know, like for those of us that have seen a Chinook and a CH-47, they're big, they're massive aircraft. When I was talking to a couple of, and this is kind of took me, I learned this about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. It's one of the fastest helicopters in the sky when you tilt it. That's just that to me is like, come on, no way. And it's like, well, it kind of makes sense now because of that, because you're 2 big, massive rotors that'll take that thing north of, 300 or something, like 300 knots, like something crazy. So it put me in my place if I'm wrong on that one.
No, it's speed. I think we're 140 is our limitation with some of our setup that we have.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's
In the
speedy.
firefighting
I was thinking
configuration,
kilometers per hour. Sorry, it's my Canadian hat on.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're restricted 140 in our firefighting configuration, but you're right. It is the fastest aircraft in the U.S. Fleet, so it is a beast. I mean, not only can it pick, but it can move.
Nice. Gents, we're kind of, like I said, we kind of got into a little couple of skirmishes of conversations here, but what you mentioned earlier here, and I'm going to lead it over to you there, Peter. Tell me a little about AJ Blaine's influence in the career. If this is going to be a heavy topic, so let me know if there's any limitations to the conversation that we're going to have here. I kind of got a bit of a briefing on it, but can you educate us a little bit of how that influence happened?
Yeah, for sure. As I alluded to earlier, AJ and I became close friends in high school and then through college, and was the introduction for me into aviation. I mean, the guy was sharp. He was fun to be around. We had similar interests outside of aviation. We loved playing practical jokes, running around in crummy old cars. I had an old Volvo 242, the 244. He had a 280Z that he had bought on a family trip to California and brought back, and we had a lot of fun in that thing, and some good experiences and some bad too. But yeah, AJ was really influential in my life at a young age. My mom wasn't sure if it was a great thing, but it really was. He was an extremely good person, and despite some of the things that we would do and the trouble we'd get into, it was never malicious. It was just kid stuff, and always in search of fun. And as we matured, that kind of went away, and we became, adults and a little less just driven by having a good time. But AJ and I, like I said, did all these things together, and I worked for the family at different points. And back in 2014, I think, AJ was involved in a aviation accident doing seismic work down in, I can't remember, I think it was Colorado. Anyway, the long and short of it is AJ did not make it away from that accident. And it was a huge disruption for everybody involved with Billings Flying Service, myself included, although I wasn't working for the company. It was tragic. I mean, the community felt it. Billings isn't very big. It's, 100,000 people in the core of the town, and, outlying it's maybe 150, 200,000. And these people are well vested in the community. They used to fly a Santa Claus around on Christmas Eve underneath a Huey. They're always giving back to the community. They give the shirt off their back to help people out. So when it happened, it was a big deal in town. And for me, it was kind of life altering, honestly. I thought, to be damned with aviation, to be honest. It was kind of like, what's the point of this? And I believe the Blaine family felt the same way. It was extremely tough. Anybody that's lost anybody in any manner knows that that's an extremely hard thing to deal with. And especially if it's your business that, it has resulted in whatever accident it is or loss of life or whatever. So yeah, it was a huge deal. And the influence it had on me was significant. And I would say also on the family. And really what that's done is, it took me a few years to kind of get back into thinking about coming back here and, rebuilding relationships with people that had kind of been, tattered by that experience. It just changed. Everything changed. It's like, that was then, this is now.
Little faith in humanity kind of brought you all back together a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And for the Blaine family, for the Billings Flying Service, that could have gone either way. That could have been the end of the day or where we are now. And, it took Al Blaine and his brother Gary. It really, they really, I'm sure, had to do a lot of soul searching. And for them, when the opportunity came up to do the Chinook, for them to say, hey, you know what, this is the right move, and we're going to put this behind us, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to do it in AJ's interest, right? AJ was passionate about flying, and he wouldn't have wanted anybody to stop for any reason. This was the game. This is how you do it. This is what we know. And so they went all in. But I'll tell you what, the difference, and not that safety wasn't a concern then, but we all know that the industry that we're involved in is high risk, right? So how do you make a business prosper and survive managing risk and, moving forward? So when we think about flying the Chinook, and we think about doing maintenance, and we think about going out there and helping other people, we always think about, okay, what does this mean? What risk are we taking on? What's the tolerance here? And, as a core value, we're always talking about, value people, strengthen the team. And really what that means is keeping people safe. We don't want to see this happen to anybody's family, anybody personally, have the effects on their communities, whatever it may be. So for us, it's always in the back of our minds. We talk about it here as part of our culture. At the end of the day, we got to be safe, right? We understand that this is a risky business, so we have to understand, okay, what's our tolerance? When is too risky? When is safety, too paramount?
Risk assessment versus the overall operations of it. Yeah. It's and I've, like you said, we all lose friends and family over, tragic or non-tragic events. it does sculpt a little bit of what happens in the after part of it. And it's sometimes amazing to see something like passing kind of reunites people somewhere down the road to kind of get that better goal up and running, right? Like it's always a collaboration of, okay, this is what you said, and everything as far as AJ's spirit and character was kind of able to kind of get around that and keep you guys all flying. So good for you for kind of getting through that, because I know it's not easy, and it's probably difficult at the probably lightest portion of it, but the fact you guys are still doing it, you keep it as one of your core values. Congratulations to that, to you and the company.
Yeah, so. Thank you. It's important to everybody here, and this is a family-run company. I'd stress that. That's something maybe people don't really realize. It's you may be a big Chinook operator, I guess. Yeah. But this is a family thing through and through, and these values that they're family values really. We hold them true and dear.
Yep. You brought up something I want to touch on, that we're managing risk, and like you said, what we're doing, we work and operate in a risky environment. And there's no way we can ever zero risk out. There's always some risk. What we're looking for is mitigating that risk, and like you said, managing that risk. When I was with Ontario, I was in charge of the safety officer position. So my job was to come up with a disaster response plan in the event of a mishap. And I'd like to talk about that for a bit, because I think there's a lot of folks who, let's face it, talking about this is tough, and nobody wants to envision themselves in a position where they've lost an aircraft, they've lost family members, they've lost a loved one. But it's going to happen at some point. Hopefully somebody that's listening to our conversation today will look at themselves and be like, hey, what kind of disaster preparedness plan do we have? If an aircraft goes down that belongs to us or not, it's in our response area or area of operation. How can we help? What does our assistance look like for them? I know you guys have developed a lot of protocols, as a result of that experience. Can you talk a little bit about the things that came out of that are kind of in this topic of conversation as far as like a disaster response plan?
Yeah, I mean, not having been on the ground floor as it was occurring, it's, I can't allude to the specifics necessarily, but what I can say is, I think a lot of times people take the ERP or their response plans kind of like, okay, I have to have this, but it's not going to happen to me. I think you really got to be serious about it and consider like, hey, this could very well happen to me. So what does this mean? Well, it means, who does what, when, where, how, whatever that is. And really it's who takes care of the people that are left behind, right? I would say is the biggest thing. Of course, there's the evidence and protecting the scene and all that other stuff and notifying the whatever NTSB or the FAA and next of kin. But really the most important part that I can see coming from it, and when I see other accidents happening, is what do you do with the people that the person who's involved in the accident has left behind? That is the biggest thing. And for us, it's okay, if we have an accident, we need to make sure that we know where these people are at, that they're notified in the appropriate time, and then get them to where they need to be and take care of them. So for us, that's okay. We got the AOG airplane. It's like, stop, it's going to be a safety stand down anyway. Go send the plane, go get these people, bring them to where they need to be. Okay, you got the people there. Now you got to look after them. That is the biggest part for us. Of course, there's the technical side of the accident itself, but really what you need to think about, and it's going to be, nobody's really going to know what's going on, right? There's a lot of confusion around it. Everybody's asking questions, a lot of unknowns. But the thing you do know is that somebody's really hurting, and you gotta look after those people, because at the end of the day, that's why we're here. That's our mission statement. We're here to care about these people, value them. And if we don't take care of their significant others or whatever it is, we're not doing our job right. So that's what I'd say about it.
Yeah, it's a huge mindset for sure to have that support in there. And I think speaking more about the specifics on the plane about, if you're thinking about as an operator or someone who's a part of that team, do you know where your plane is? And for me, it's, everyone's got their own flavor on it. And so when they're rolling this out and we do our, our training events on it, obviously everyone's got their training and you're looking at that and you're doing your recurrent, a training event, right? It's like, hey, let's actually go through this, whether it's announced or unannounced. Like, do you know what you need to do? Like, where are you expected to be? And that's the environment where you need to ask questions, because that's how things get vetted out, right? Hey, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, is there a role for me here? And if there's not, that's fine. But I'm not clear on what the actual plan is. 'Cause if it sits there and gets dusty and then you blow off the dust in the case of a tragic situation, it does no one any good if you haven't gone through that and really poked holes where you can to get that as clean cut and clearly concise as possible. So definitely to Pete's point, maintaining that relationship with the company and their network is huge. And then from the actual tactical side, making sure that that's in place, where it's at. And then if you need to go through there and drill that and ask questions, that's a huge factor to consider.
I'm gonna use a quote here that I learned through my years of playing football, but also it's actually a military takeaway there. When it all breaks down and you're down to the absolute root cause of where you're at, should at least remember your basic training of it all. And I think kind of exactly what you said. If you haven't planned for it, if you haven't trained for it, you're going to be reduced to like, now what? But at the same time, if you've gone over the training, kind of, if you can remove whatever happened in that particular moment and it boils down to your basic training of what you just went through, you'll get through it. And where it's just, you have to count on that to be that your ground zero step of your basic training is able to kind of get you at least propelled in the correct manners.
Rotorcraft Support Inc., where expertise meets excellence in helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. FAA and EASA certified Part 145 repair station and OEM factory authorized service center. Keeping your aircraft mission ready since 1986. Visit us at rotorcraftsupport.com. Rotorcraft Support, trusted by the industry.
Yeah, my dad's a building inspector, and it's kind of funny. He had this little pen on his desk, and it said, "Building safety is no accident." It's like, you don't just stumble into a safe plan. Like, you got to have intention behind that. And I think that really sticks to a lot of things. Obviously not buildings here, but it's a mindset, and it takes effort to do that, but it's worthwhile for sure.
Yeah, sure it does.
Peter, you brought up the fact that these things can be confusing. Everyone's emotional, a lot of things, a lot of unknowns. So I think, Jed, to your point, tactically coming up with a plan, our plan outlines what the director of maintenance was responsible for, what the chief pilot was responsible for, what the safety officer was responsible for, and had a list of things that fell underneath the folks that fell under them. So because it's so confusing, you realize that everyone's going to want to help, but not really know where to get plugged in. If you have these plans prepared, your director of maintenance can pull up and be like, hey, I need X, Y, and Z done. And you can assign people there. There's, a little confusion as to things that need to take place tactically. Of course, there'll be variations for each different scenario, but at least you have kind of the structure and bones of what needs to happen on paper. Because again, it's going to be confusing, it's going to be emotional, and it'll be challenging, So I love that you brought that up, Jed. I think it's really important. The monthly or quarterly safety meetings that we have, bringing that manual out and looking at it and going through some of those roles, like you said, trying to poke holes in it. How do we deal with this scenario or that scenario? I think the table talk's really important. The time to figure out solutions is before an incident takes place. If you're trying to figure out how to respond in the moment, it's going to be really, really hard. So I love that you brought that up. Table talk is really important. And I think safety meetings are the place for that. So
you're trying to, at that point, to use a better analogy here, you're trying to juggle 6 balls on a little teeter-totter, right? Yeah. Like you're in chaotic scenarios and you're just bringing more to the chaos theory on that one. So yeah, you're right. I think a lot of our guests we spoke a lot about there too is being comfortable, being uncomfortable. If it takes that kind of monthly talk of, reviewing the safety and search methods and stuff like that you guys go through, safety response methods. It's mandatory that I think everyone should at least be there, and to the point where you understand it, even if you find it boring, you still at least have that ingrained. So
yeah, it's easy to be complacent, right? It takes work to be good at whatever it is, and safety is no exception.
Yep. Okay, let's. That was again. Thanks. That was a little bit of a heavier part of the conversation, guys. But like speaking of being the best and one of the best. Listen, when it comes to supporting the forest industry, the firefighting industry, there's nothing better out there than a CH-47 flopping over top, right? So let's get into the conversation of what makes that thing the beast that it is. What's the game changer? Why is it always kind of like call C-47, call the CH-47 to it? That'll take care of it. So I'll let you guys kind of brag about that. Jed, if you want to get into it first, we'll rip down to Peter.
Yeah, I think Peter's got the stat sheet ready to go. I think the platform really speaks to the capabilities and the availability of it. It's something that the industry needs. So I think you got the actual numbers in front of you here, Pete. But when you look at what this can do and how you get that out there on the scene, it's
and brag
huge.
about it now, man. This is then we get to talk about the wop machine. Let's go. Let's brag about it.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, it's the 47. It's big, it's lean, it's mean. We already talked about the speed. That's a huge part of the deal.
Yep.
But really, it's the load. We're talking 20,000 pounds off the hook. 2,000 gallons of water, either internal, external, whether it's bucket or tank, and the ability to take, dip pretty much anywhere. It could be a lake, it could be a stream, it could be a modular setup. You can set up a dip anywhere as long as there's water nearby. So, we're nimble. We don't have to have a lake. We don't necessarily have to have glide slope. We can get in to tight canyons. We can, do high altitude, whatever it is. We're proud. We think it's the best bang for the buck, dollar per gallon of water. Hard to beat a Chinook, man. We think it's the best platform out there. The volume of water, the speed at which you can get there, the support you can give to the guys on the ground for initial attack can't be beat. If you can have the thing fired up, ready to go, and you got a dip site nearby, you could be making maybe 40 turns a fuel cycle. That's game changer if you're on IA, or if you got people that are in need. It can really put out a lot of water on the fire quickly. So, we think it's awesome. And I think there's other people out there that would agree, especially after what they saw down there in LA.
Well, John's probably a little more, he can probably speak to, he had the smoke directly affected to him here. That's just with the, everything that happened throughout LA, you guys are on the spot. You had everything, how many aircraft do you have dedicated to that alone?
Well, so we didn't have anything there when it kicked off, but we had 4 aircraft there within 2 days, I believe. So we were, as soon as the word came out, we were ready. Fortunately, we were carded and ready to go prior to. So when the call came, it was just a matter of get the crews, get the pilots up here and send them. I think it took 2 days or so to fly down there. We dealt with some pretty chilly weather crossing through Wyoming and some other stuff happening along the way, as you'd expect. It's the first fire call of the season. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was rapid and it was high paced and it was exciting, man. Around here, the winter maintenance can be kind of doldrums. You're just using a bunch of parts. Everybody's kind of going, whatever. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, we're on it.
Game on.
Ass.
Game on. Yeah.
So everybody was stoked.
Nice. Well, listen, like I say, when it comes to particular firefighting, those things, like I said, those are game changers. And when you're kind of looking at, the advantage of what you just spoke about, the external carry load is just 2,000 gallons of water is a difference maker. And if you can do that 40 times per day kind of scenario without and then you have how many machines did you say you had out there? 4?
We had 4 there. Yep.
So that's going to be going up and down some good hills there.
Yeah, and we're not the only operators. We got to give credit where credit's due. A lot of people came together to make that all happen. Obviously there was a ton of loss, but man, people were humping to get stuff down there and to get mobilized. So I give credit to everybody that was involved there.
Even us Canadians threw a couple of aircraft down to you guys there. So
let's not even talk about those things. But yeah, that's a hell of a platform as well. I wouldn't say we compete in, we're not exactly in the same space, but when we talk about firefighting and aerial assets, sure, the 415 is a great aircraft. It just needs a little more space to operate.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And please don't fly drones around them. Please don't fly drones.
PSA, don't fly your drones.
Yeah. Don't fly your drones around there. But that was
an interesting side topic in the LA area. During that fire, there was an unbelievable amount of drones that were up and flying, interfering with fire operations. And it's just, you'd think people would be smarter than that, but obviously they're not. There was hundreds of incursions and it's disheartening to see. You think people would be smart enough not to operate, but they're not. So it's something that, we're going to have to figure out as an industry, how to prevent this, how to deal with it. I don't know if we're going to be in a situation now where, in addition to all the support, considerations you have going into a fire, you might have to consider, okay, well, skin repair, how do we deal with the aircraft that might be impacted by a drone, as the Canadian aircraft saw. Horrible that happened.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic too, because you think about people in the aviation community and they get it right. But you think about the market that buys the drones,
YouTubers, Instagrammers.
they may not understand, right? If there's a infrastructure on our side where we get it, but for the general public, it's definitely a little bit of an education piece about, how that could really impact, these kind of efforts to really put these things out or anything else, right? It doesn't have to be just firefighting, could be disaster relief, anything like that. We're trying to get in there to do something. That's a safety risk for the pilots and the aircraft itself. So it's a big deal. That's a good point to bring up, how we continue to advocate and educate the community about that and outside of the community as well.
Yep. So anybody who's listening to this show, if there's a natural disaster, don't fly your drones, please. You have good people trying to help you out here, and with you flying around just to get your Insta snaps or snaps up or whatever, put it down for now. Let us control it first, and then then go enjoy afterward. But please don't do it during the flying of it, because it's costly, it's expensive, and it's definitely a safety risk. So yeah, that's
Giggle about it.
That's the end of my PSA.
It's giggle about it because it's ridiculous, but it's true. DJI as a company, they make decent drones for a pretty good affordable price. They're capable. I mean, they've got a 3-mile range, line of sight, pretty good sensor as far as the camera goes. You can do some pretty cool stuff with it. They used to have the geofencing capabilities, but DJI just got rid of those. So now you can essentially fly those, whether it was TFR or you're in Class Bravo airspace, you can fly those things anywhere now. So I think, as aviators, it's something to consider. You don't just have the cheap little target drones flying around now. You've got fairly capable DJI drones that can be impacting airspace, which is crazy.
Yep. So I'm going to ask the question. It was written down here. This is going to be to you there, Peter. Size and speed, obviously, it's two major advantages to the CH-47s. What kind of difference does the aircraft make in an intense firestorm that like we saw in LA?
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing would be, we got 2.5 hours or about there of cycle time. We've got the speed, we've got the capacity. You could have them if you got them pre-poed. That's the big question, right? It's like, where do you put the aircraft? Where do you think the fire is going to start? Obviously, California, they've got their early response aircraft program set up, and they've got that going on. But for us and for everybody else, it's like, all right, you pre-position, you can get the thing to move cross country, get to where the fire's at, and get in there and start dumping water. And I mean, really, these are the same points we talked about earlier. It's about the capacity and it's about the speed, right? Frequency, amount of water. How fast can you get the wet stuff on the red stuff? So,
yeah, and at a sustained pace, right? To that point, you don't need a huge run strip for this thing. So getting access to that, bringing up the dip site, putting up new ones in new spots where you need it, having those artificial points available. That's a game changer about, gallons per hour on the fire. And you can move that and relocate it. You're not fixed. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, we talk about 40 dips in a fuel cycle or something. I mean, that's like ideal, right? You've got 2-minute turns or less. And then, we're on the dip for under a minute with the pump and the tank. It's super fast. But that's not typically how it is. I mean, California's set up a little different, right? They have all those dip sites and reservoirs, and they're kind of trying to mitigate those dangers. Whether it works all the time, well, that's, I guess, up for dispute now. But, there's oftentimes, though, when you get in these fires and they're super remote, water, the dip sites are far off. I mean, we're doing maybe 7 dips and drops per fuel cycle, which isn't as great. But I mean, if you're waiting on a VLAT or if you got to wait on a 415 to go hit a lake, that's probably going to be even further. So really it has to do with the mobility and the nimbleness of the aircraft. And, and then on top of that, just the sheer capability of it.
Educate me on this, because you brought up an interesting point here when it comes to dip sites. And California, obviously, like southwestern United States, has a water issue. There's clearly water issues there. When you come into a situation like if you're firefighting in California versus firefighting in, say, like New Mexico or something like that, where the water is far and few between? Do you send more machines out, keep it a higher frequency, or you just kind of figure out who designates the dip sites?
That's up to the agency.
Okay.
You know, they call for the assets and they decide who they want and when they want them flying. In terms of the dip sites, yeah, I mean, we can determine what looks like a suitable dip site. Typically, air attack would be on site beforehand. Scouting, you know, where the fire's at, where the closest dip is. We could see something else and you know, bring that up as like, hey, I think we could hit this and bring it in closer. But yeah, typically that's going to be dictated by the agency that's managing the fire. Who's flying, when they're flying, and you know, where they're flying to or from.
Can you talk about the logistics and resources behind the aircraft? What's required? The ramping up. You get a request to go fight fires in Southern California in the
It's a
winter
big
of all
deal.
times.
It's a huge deal. And Judd and I were talking about this earlier before we got on. It's, you know, we run like a whole logistics arm, right? Like this isn't just an aviation company where you just jump in the thing and fly. We're probably more or less, we are a logistics company. We operate you know, for every aircraft, there's a fuel tanker truck and a service trailer that goes with it. So when you mobilize the aircraft, sure, the pilots jump in, they get going. But right behind them, here comes the fuel truck and the support vehicles. So, you know, we're bringing the fuel to wherever we got to go. We're bringing a big trailer with a certain number of components, spares, whatever it may be, workshop tools. You know, we can do everything pretty much minus heavy maintenance we're equipped to do. And then parts support. I mean, obviously we can't carry every part that we're going to need in the trailer. So we'll bring consumables and things we know are heavy use items. We also have a fixed wing division here. So we rely on the Pilatus PC-12 as a AOG support aircraft. And that's how we get it done. I mean, we can fit pretty much everything, less an engine in a PC. No, we can fit an engine in a PC-12 too, I believe. So
We can, the forward transmission, that's the big footprint.
Yeah, that's the big one. But, you know, you talk about these things going out to the field and doing the work. It's tough, right? You might be on some mobile airbase or not mobile airbase, but a small little field. And how do you actually get the stuff you need? If you got to do a rotor header, transmission, you got to get a crane. You're not going to fly that in. You got to truck that in from somewhere. So, you know, getting the parts there is one thing. Getting the people and the right tools, that's a whole nother thing. So logistically, it's, you know, they call it the road show, right? It's like bringing the circus along.
I mean, just the fuel truck by itself is a monster. You know, how big is the fuel truck that supports that aircraft?
That's a 10,000 gallon tanker. So, I mean, it's, you know, it's like a fuel delivery truck you see running down the interstate. The only thing is it says Billings Flying Service on the side. It's going to help us out.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So overall, when you're talking about, so you have two pilots and you say fuel truck and then a kind of a parts support truck as well. You're talking what, 5-6 guys per aircraft?
Oh, let's see. And then plus your night maintenance guys. So, you know, we're just shy of 10 guys on the crew when it's all said and done.
That's a lot of moving parts to keep a lot of moving parts up and flying.
Yeah, it's a, you know, it takes a lot to make a lot happen, right?
Sure.
We appreciate all the people that are out there. And, you know, I want to give a shout out to our trucking department. I don't think they get a lot of love from the industry as a whole. And I mean, every company out there, they've got something similar going that's in our business. And those guys are kind of unsung heroes. You know, the mechanics get a little love, not as much as the pilots and the aircraft, but the mechanics and then the fuel truck drivers and the support truck drivers, you know, got to give them a hand because
throw some names out there, Peter. We're a show of shout outs here. Throw some names out. Go ahead,
right,
brother.
I'll shout out Tom Spent. He's our director of transportation. He does a lot to keep us going. And, you know, you have your own challenges running down the road with other people, other operators, whatever it may be. So he does a hell of a job keeping us fueled up and moving. So got to thank Tom. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
And his second in command, Spencer, I'll throw him out there too.
Done. Listen, anytime you guys get that kind of support on the bottoms there, like it's the unknown heroes. I'm all about it. Our shows, like I said, we got a shout out section. Shout it out. It's all good.
All right.
It's all good. So go. Anything to add there, John? You look like you're kind of.
No, I have a ton of questions, but I want to keep us on track here, so I won't keep interrupting.
No. Listen, it's all good, man. It's all good. So Looking at so when Billings decided to kind of go right into the C-47s, you're the first commercial company to successfully purchase the type certificates, CH-47 Deltas, Ds. You trained maintenance staff to quote unquote design to fit, facility to sustain all aerial operations in Chinooks. Can you talk about that process a little bit? Because I'm sure that was an undertaking to ditch the rest.
Yeah, I mean it's still in process, right? We're learning new things, we're taking on new capabilities, but it's an aviation base. The people that are working on these things are, they're rooted in aviation. So it's, at the end of the day, it is a rotorcraft, right? But it is special. It's an ex-military unit. And because of that, we hired a lot of veterans out of the Army to come and be mechanics, especially early on. I'd say now the majority of our workforce is ex-military. I mean, it's great. They've got the experience. They've got the training. They've somebody else paid to train them. They know the aircraft, and what they do and how they do it is, the Army operates a little different than a civilian operator typically would. So there is some stuff there, but man, without them, it would be a tough road to haul. So we really appreciate those guys.
And if you think about the history of the aircraft that we have, right, this is kind of a second chapter in that storybook for the aircraft. It's the same kind of situation for the workforce. So, they got that great experience. They know the platform, they know the manuals, things like that, right? It's just kind of a second chapter for them as well. Say, hey, it's a little bit different, but there's a lot of familiarity there. Like, what it is. And, some of the mechanics actually knew the aircraft that we have. They used to work on them when they were in the service too. So there's continuity there, and also a continuation and a new chapter for both the platform and the workforce.
And chances are, if they learn this while they're in the military, it was under duress too. It's in a stressful situation. And they probably picked up a good habit or two on knowing how to support those things.
Yeah, the experience and that mission-oriented focus is definitely an asset. There's pluses and minuses to that. But if you look at, the way that we operate and maintain these helicopters, there is that mission focus, right? Just like we're trying to mobilize to get down there to fight that fire. Different mission, but a similar mindset to kind of get there and meet that goal.
This is probably, and you know what, I might be a little biased here, and I don't care. I think the CH-47 is probably the most mission-based helicopter out there. I had there's the second giving of life of what you guys are talking about here is, but you still it's still a hardcore mission. It doesn't soften up in any way, shape, or form when you're going from, I had the privilege of going down to the 160th and seeing a couple of these in operation. And then kind of eventually seeing when they become, run by commercial companies, it's still a badass mission. It's just, these things are meant to be worked hard.
Yeah,
so,
and I could do a whole podcast and talking about the restricted category certification of it. But it's a really huge point you're hitting on here is when you look at a complex environment like this where, budgets are obviously increasingly paramount for these kind of situations, right? You simply cannot afford to buy a fleet of all new helicopters at the rate that you need to get the job done. And especially in this heavy area, it's like a multiple of 50x or more, right? So when you look at this scope and this landscape about why the Chinook's important, it's providing value where we're using this asset in the appropriate ways as approved with the FAA, right? There's collaboration there. But that allows us to give a proven asset with a proven program a second life at an economic value that really isn't, easily findable anywhere else. These assets are really hard to come by. They're really important, and it's a huge need for the public.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Rotorcraft Support Inc., where expertise meets excellence in helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. FAA and EASA certified Part 145 repair station, an OEM factory authorized service center. Keeping your aircraft mission ready since 1986. Visit us at rotorcraftsupport.com. Rotorcraft Support, trusted by the industry.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Hey everybody, this is Val here with Vertical MRO. Thanks for listening to this part 1 of our series. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your support does help and create more content like this. For those of you who want to continue the conversation, join us on our social media channels and platforms or visit our website over at verticalmag.com. We'd love to hear all your thoughts and questions about today's topics. Until next time, I'm Val. This is Vertical MRO. We'll be seeing you.